Hello everyone, this is yet another episode of Career Talks, and today we'll be talking to Dr. Oliver Hauss. How to be a good educator, how to pull off a good workshop. Today's many online content creators name themselves educators, but are they? And today we'll be talking to Oliver primarily about his practice as a trainer and medical science trainer and consultant, and his broad experience with designing and pulling off workshops. So how to construct a good workshop, how to enchant the audience and make sure they learn as much as they possibly can from your workshop. What are the secrets of being an educator? Oliver is an award-winning educator. Therefore, today's episode will be dedicated to workshops and education. Education is an art, and Oliver will share with us his little life hacks and secrets for how to be the best educator you can possibly be. Thank you so much for your attention, and let's get going. Thank you so much for coming, Oliver. Great to meet you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, after we talked on LinkedIn so many times, so it's great to see you finally in person. And I have a few questions for you, since you have a long story in biomedical sciences and also starting from your PhD. Could you please tell us your personal about your personal journey? How did you make your pivotal life choices so far in terms of your professional life, and how you feel about them?
Well, for that, I actually have to go back to before my PhD, because I started learning lessons, so of course, way before that, also about the choices I made. So I originally studied chemistry, specializing in biochemistry in Germany. Then but I realized I wanted to go into life science and was lacking still some background knowledge. Mm-hmm. And so I decided, since I had some contact with the US during my back then still diploma thesis, now it would be master thesis, I went to the US and joined a graduate school at UT Southwestern Medical Center at Dallas for cell and molecular biology. I learned a lot of things there in terms of methodology and a lot of things about myself. And of course, it was quite a challenge being on a different continent than your entire family and your entire support system. Luckily, I had a very, very distant relative living actually in Dallas, but that's a different topic. But research-wise, unfortunately, the projects I got were all what one professor called fishing expeditions. And when you have fishing expeditions, then it can happen that you only pull out old pots, shoes, etc. So research-wise, it was not that productive. And so after 3 years, I decided I'm going back to good old Germany. And I left with a master thesis, not a PhD, and I returned to Germany, but I hadn't given up on my goal of doing a PhD. And I then actually got a position at the Max Planck Institute in Dortmund in cooperation with the university in Bochum, because in Germany, only universities can hand out PhDs. No matter if you're an international renowned research institute, no, it has to be a university. And I did something that was highly unusual for Max Planck Institute because it was a very applied project. I was working on tumor diagnostics, cancer diagnostics. And so after finishing that PhD, I ended up in the diagnostics industry on the Europe, Middle East, Africa level. It was a very interesting position in medical affairs, where I did a lot of training, a lot of teaching, a lot of presentations, but also event organizations. And I got very good feedback on the trainings I got. I mean, looking at your CV, statistics is something that comes naturally to you, but I think you know that there's a lot of people for whom that is not the case. And I had workshops in diagnostic statistics for non-academically trained medical technologists.
If I can,
they loved it.
Something, I think, honestly speaking, I think that statistics for humans is quite, it's intuitive. If you cannot grasp statistics, I think it means you had bad teachers. Most people had bad teachers in math at school. And I think this is the only reason why they cannot get statistics, because when you think about it, we like evolved to be able to like to be able to estimate probabilities, and we do it every day, just not consciously. So if you had ever had problems with statistics, I think you should blame your teacher. Ontology of value, we help professionals with developing their potential, building value, and navigating towards their dream careers. We offer intensive career orientation courses combining self-discovery with practical information about the job market. We also work on our own educational materials such as books and self-navigation manuals. Our new tool, the Ontology of Value test, will help you discover what your natural way of creating value in the job market is and which working environment fits you best. If you'd like to stay in touch with us and receive monthly updates, please subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah, but then I think that's with a lot of topics. So personally, I'm someone who says there's no such thing as a dry topic. It's just a matter of whether the one who teaches it to you is willing to put in the time and the effort to make it accessible. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's not the case with a lot of things. I mean, for example, back in school, a lot of people hate chemistry. And I had a teacher in the later years who was a hobby cook. So he loved to cook. And so what we did was, when we talked about carbohydrates, we were making custard, we were making horseradish sauce. And when we're talking about proteins, we were making jello. And so we had a great relation that chemistry is something, regardless of whether you're a chemist or not, you deal with every day. If you do as much as putting some meal on the stove, baking, cooking, it's all chemistry. And I think making things relatable like that's something that's very important that a lot of people miss. So back in industry, in that first industry position already, while I was getting great feedback for my trainings, I also had a colleague who was an absolute genius, but he lacked a little bit the understanding that not everyone else was. And so when I organized events, I was always a little bit skeptical when we planned him as a speaker, because I knew he would completely wow the audience. But if you talk with them about the content later on, they would just repeat how great it was, what a great workshop, what a great presentation, but they couldn't reproduce any of the actual content because they were just completely flashed. Right. That was what started moving me to try to find out if there's some research on what makes an effective presentation, on what makes my workshops very interesting and what makes other workshops less effective. And now, after a couple of years, unfortunately, my position hadn't developed in the way I was hoping for, and so I got an offer from the pharmaceutical industry, which came with a 50% increase in salary, not counting a company car. So it was very tempting. But as it turned out, it was a co-marketing agreement between two different companies. So I had a line manager in one company, the product responsible was in the other company, and the whole cooperation was coordinated on the European level. So in total, I had something like 3 bosses. And so that didn't last very long. So yeah, actually in academia, when I was a PhD student, I was also, I felt like I was pushed and pulled around between a few different bosses. I was a student in 2 labs, 50-50, and in one of them I had promoter and daily supervisor who was not a promoter and not co-promoter, and the other lab I had another promoter and a co-promoter, so I had to make all of them happy at the same time. So it was 4 different people, 4 different nationalities, 4 different expectations, and yeah. And you know how crazy that can get. So at a couple of instances throughout those years, things didn't quite work out the way I had initially hoped for or expected. But I mean, that's what we also know in research, or as one of my supervisors in the US said, that's why we call it research, because you have to search again and again and again and again. Yeah. And the same was basically with the plans you make. I mean, perhaps it would even be a boring world if everything works out quite the way we imagined. I think the important thing is to always be ready to adjust your plans. And if you have goals, there might be another way around to reach that goal. And for me, in the end, it turned out that if I don't find the right thing for me in one form, then maybe I can create the ideal form for me. And that's how I ended up freelancing in, well, medical scientific communications with a focus on presentations. So at the moment, a lot is also writing. And yeah, that's what I've been doing for a couple of years now.
So my first question for you would be, okay, so maybe you can share with us what are some secrets of a good workshop. So I do workshops for a living, sort of, but maybe I can learn from you. Like, what do you think is the main difference between like a memorable workshop and a non-memorable workshop?
There are, I think, two key things, and the most important one is focus. Have a clear focus and have a clear idea of what you can do in a time and what you cannot do in a time. When, for example, if you have 20 minutes to hold a workshop about statistics, you cannot talk about statistics. Mm-hmm. That's way too broad a scope. And if you try to cram that into 20 minutes, then nobody will learn anything. But you can take one specific aspect and focus on that aspect and try to make it accessible.
Right.
And the other is have a clear thread, a clear structure, so that one part follows from the next. That makes it easier to follow. And of course, the third part is preparation. Right. I like to say, especially with presentations, the problem is usually not, well, it is the right topic. It can't be helped. The problem is all too often, well, I'll do the presentation on my way to the conference or something like that.
Yeah, actually, my main problem while giving workshops personally is that every single time I give a workshop, I have ideas what to change, what to improve, what to add, and I have these like thoughts stacking in the back of my mind. And until the workshop is over, I am completely exhausted because I'm trying to memorize everything that I thought of during.
Yeah, I think it's important not to really try to memorize every bit and piece, but that's why it's helpful to have a clear line, because if the line is clear, you know your flow, you know where you want to go. And the individual bits and pieces, I mean, that's something that I used to get worked up about quite a bit years ago. And of course, it still annoys you if you realize, well, I had this great phrasing and I didn't use it. But the thing is, the audience doesn't know what you wanted to talk about. Mm-hmm. The audience only sees what you talk about. And I think we need to free ourselves from this notion that everything has to be just the way we plan it out.
Oh, yeah. I grew out of this.
Yeah, both because, as the saying goes, no battle plan survives contact with the enemy.
Right.
But also because if we pre-planned it and then follow our plan like a railroad, then that means we don't leave any room for interaction with the audience.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so can I ask you more about your work as a freelancer? Because I think for many PhDs, well, they are attracted to freelancing because of the keyword free in it. But there is some barrier to entry, right? So the main problem is, how do I find my first client? It's always the same problem. So how did you find your first client? What was your transition process from your job towards becoming independent?
Well, in my case, since I had a background in industry, getting my first couple of clients was pretty straightforward, because I contacted people I had worked with in the past in industry. Of course, that's a lot harder if you come directly from academia. And the thing is, of course, that going beyond that is also a challenge, and of course has been a challenge for me also these past years, because how do you get into communication with people about presentations? you go to events where people hold presentations and talk with them about the presentations there. Now, these past 2 years, that was not quite that easy because all the presentations went online. And yeah, well, networking online is not quite the same as standing around the table with a cup of coffee in your hand. And I mean, it's still partially the case. I mean, in March, I was at a conference in Berlin. I thought, hooray, a live conference again. Yeah, except that of all the regular speakers, I was the only one who was actually there in person, and the rest was all online. So yeah, but as I say, if it doesn't work out one way, you always need to prepare to be ready to work towards the goal in another way. So that's something I think that's important also as a freelancer to be flexible, to try different options, find out what works for you.
How did you find your first client then? Was it how did you network? You know, to because that's actually the main problem I think for like at the moment is that too many like this whole topic of becoming financially independent, independent in general, entrepreneurial. It became really popular in the times of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so many people actually took a life decision to change their path in the last two years. That now there's like just there is an overly high supply of people who try to make it as entrepreneurs compared to those who decide to continue as employees. And so extremely hard to find a good employee, and there's such a high number of people who entitle themselves as coaches, as all kind of freelance professionals, just because they are starting, they are hustling on the side, they try to break it through and become independent.
Yeah, well, as I said, luckily my first clients I got before the pandemic. As I said, simply former colleagues of mine in the industry that I work with, which of course is especially good if you tell people you want to help them with trainings and they know you give good trainings. It's obviously much easier to convince them. And back then I was simply going to some conferences where I knew they would be, and started chatting with them. Of course, you can also call them, but seeing the people face to face again, especially if you haven't seen them in a while, is of course a nice addition and makes it for a greater connection than when you deliberately call someone after several years or something, say, hey, you haven't heard from me in ages, but I have this great service to sell now. Is of course not that. Yeah, so I think if you have those contacts and you have something that might be relevant to them, simply going where you know they are going to go and chatting with them, without immediately pushing that you have those services to sell, I think is a good way to get started. But I mean, especially at the beginning, getting new clients is the hardest part of the business. The thing is, there's this nice saying that you have to spend some money to earn some money. And especially when you start out, money is in short supply. So ads on LinkedIn or wherever cost money, ads on Google cost money, ads in any journal cost money, and even going to conferences costs quite a bit of money, unless you have some good contacts who can get you in on some free ticket.
Yeah, actually, I have thoughts about this because I totally agree. And with my workshops, I was also at some point, I started buying ads. I was like, simple, right? You just buy Facebook ads or Google ads, and then it's going to be fine. But it didn't convert at all.
Yeah.
And what actually, and I also noticed that even though I feel like I'm a stronger blogger than I am a presenter, it's still, people trust you the most when they see your face, and especially palms, when they see your not only face but also your hands. This is like a psychological effect. So by the way, I just reminded myself of that. But the point is, when they see your face, they see your hands, they subconsciously start trusting you more. And when they take important decisions, for instance, where to go for training, they are much more likely to go choose your training or your products if they feel like they know you, and they feel like they know you and they really see you and hear you. And even like the same material, if it's written down and presented somewhere online versus recorded, it works completely differently. And in the last few months, I was not recording because I had some other matters in the company. I was working a lot on other projects. I was also freelancing actually and doing some interesting stuff on the side. But I noticed that the sales went down, even though my blog actually is much more stuffed with good information than it used to be. The SEO is much better. So even though I was producing a lot of content and the products also got like richer in content, the sales went down just because people were not able to see my face online. I was not releasing new episodes, so it's really it's a game of trust. And
And since you mentioned seeing the hands, etc., of course, as we can see right now, that's even much more difficult also with those online meetings. That's one thing, one additional thing that makes meetings in person so much more effective also, rather than and of course, while these online conferences, they have networking sessions, my experience is barely anyone uses them. People prefer then to go to the kitchen, grab a cup of coffee, and then come back after 15 minutes or something like that. Yeah, a lot of people have decided to go freelance these past years, but the situation hasn't precisely made it easier to freelance.
yeah, totally not. Yeah, I can see that because first, competition is harsh. Second, indeed, there's the like online advertising is getting more and more expensive. And yeah, it's indeed like big get bigger. Like globalization works, and it also works in the world of freelancing. Whoever had like very popular blog before the crisis, like they are now actually flourishing. And whoever was starting, yeah, it's just not easy. And obviously there is this winner's curse. So you will find tutorials on YouTube on how to run a multi-million online business, but it's only like you will only see it because it's from someone who succeeded, and
Yeah.
you won't see. Yeah, so I know how it works. And uh, you've just, yeah, if you really feel like you have heart for it, I think you have to be patient.
Yeah.
And I can totally understand why it drains people. It just, I also like, if not the fact that I had some passive income next to what I do, I would also be very stressed about the situation. And it's
I
also
mean,
like,
and even some of the advantages, they only actually pan out in the long run. For example, um, I'm now working as a freelancer with a person I worked in the past as an employee, and our personalities we had our clashes. And as a freelancer, in theory, I can of course say that okay, I don't want to accept this contract, but the reality is, of course, especially in a situation at the beginning, you're happy for every contract that you are getting.
absolutely, yeah,
So the opportunity to turn down something that only comes once your calendar is booked.
yeah. Well, it's also like once you grow and once you become more like recognized, you can also, if you don't want the contract, you can just put the price to like high, uh, ridiculous numbers.
Yeah,
Like,
but that also depends on who you're dealing with, right? I
yeah,
mean, I have a long-term contract with one major company, doing something for them whenever something comes up in terms of writing stuff. And initially, they came to me and said, "Okay, I should write quarterly reports, and then I get my money after 30 days." And I said, "Folks, that means I would be working 4 months because before I start seeing any money." I can't afford that. And so in the end, luckily they agreed that I can file monthly reports and get my money monthly, but they still insist on 30 days payment period, which of course is ridiculous for a big company. It's not like they don't have the money to pay me, but with a company like that, there's only so much leverage you have as a freelancer, because they know very much, they know very well there's tons of freelancers who would be happy to work with them. And if you don't accept those terms, then, well, someone else will.
The longest I've waited so far was 10 months.
Wow.
It was university, no surprise there. French, no surprise there.
The funny thing I once had was, so one company I worked for, they had outsourced their company magazine to an agency. Mm-hmm. And so they had recommended me to that agency, and I was writing articles for that magazine. Now the thing is, in parallel, I had contracts with the company itself, and everything I billed them, I had my money within 2 weeks. But everything I did for the agency, despite in the end it was for the same company, they then said, yes, well, we have to see when the whole magazine has been approved by the company, then maybe we can pay you. Hello? You asked for the article, I wrote the article, you said it's okay on your part. Could you please finally pay me now?
Yeah. Well, you can't have it all. Like this is, but you still have free the keyword free in the title of your profession. So
I mean that's the one thing, of course, that you have to get used to as a freelancer. If you're an employee, you know at the end of the month you will have the amount X on your bank account.
That's also freedom, right? It's something I'm realizing now, because so many people go into freelancing and entrepreneurship thinking that they will be finally free, and then they start a startup and figure out that, hey, now I have to serve to 3 gods. I have to serve to my clients, to my employees, and to my investors, and I'm just running around like in a hamster wheel, trying to please everyone. And I've never been more like in harness than now. And now, like, oh, I'm in deep shit now, because I ended up with 10% of my company shares, which I cannot even sell for the next 5 years. And if I leave now, I lose everything I've built. And so it's just, and with freelancing also, like, first you grind, and you have to go on for years sometimes without really breaking even or like making substantial income. And also, like, market doesn't really protect freelancers well. You can end up with mental health problems. It's just it's not as much freedom as you might think, maybe. And actually there was some study on American millionaires in September last year. It was released, and they basically they made a questionnaire among 10,000 millionaires around the US. And the study showed that 85% of them, they were not entrepreneurs or freelancers. They were not born rich, and they did not inherit their fortune, and they did not steal their fortune. They were not making high paychecks. They were actually middle tier employees who learned what compound interest is, and they were just putting their savings aside for a long time. Mm-hmm. And investing in SP 500 and things like that. And after average of 28 years, they were reaching $1 million. So it's actually sometimes, like, to be free, you have to just like find a peaceful job that you enjoy and just stop, rushing and taking part in this rat race to become the next big thing. Yeah. Well, once you can just find personal freedom being employed, it's, yeah.
I mean, as a freelancer, you certainly need to be able to deal with uncertainty and surprises. You think you expect the client to pay on day X, and on day X plus 1, you look on your bank account and the money isn't there. And okay, now you have bills to pay. What do you do? You have to be flexible. You have to be able to throw your plans around. And we have this funny, it's more tragic than funny, but in Germany, the term for self-employed is selbstständig. With a selbst is self, and ständig comes from being independent, but it's also to be in your own standing, so to speak. But the same word also means constantly in German. So people like to joke that if you're self-employed, you do the work yourself and you work constantly.
There's
So
something in it, yeah.
yeah.
You have to learn how to hustle. Like your whole life has to turn into this holy hustle, and you never really get out of the role. So even at like a party, all of a sudden you see a potential client, then you have to switch to another mode and start selling. Like you can't ever stop. It's just a game that never stops. Yeah.
And of course, if you promise the client he will have the stuff on Monday morning and you don't have it, you don't have it finished on Friday, well then guess what that means.
Sure. I like weekends because then nobody really wants anything from me. I can just work.
Yeah, I'm also someone like I also like working in the evening or night because I know I won't be getting any phone calls from anyone. I will just be able to focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, you then need to take into account if you go way into the night that 8:30, 9:30, the phone might be already be ringing again with the client.
Right. Yeah, actually, but I actually honestly like my preferred way of doing this is like to go more into the solopreneurship mode.
Mhm.
So like I'm actually planning to turn my company more into a DAO, so that I basically make a ledger of open projects and find subcontractors who can just submit these projects, so they can choose a project and submit it, and in this form. So it's a bit of a combination between freelancing and entrepreneurship because no one has stakes in my company, so it's more
Mhm.
like freelance type of activity because no one really can tell me what to do. But at the same time it's more like it's more scalable because it's not only me but there are also other people working.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's like a good combination because at the end of the day I'm in charge, so I can always dispose people. I can just disconnect them. Like if someone doesn't do a good job, I can say, well, this was the last project, I'm sorry but there are no more projects for you. Never happened yet. My subcontractors are really cool, but like just in theory I can always
Yeah.
pull a plug. So it's like I think it's a good combination between the two. uh, yeah, and I think like, there is some actually. I've seen some talks at the recent conference here in Amsterdam. It was called DevCon. It was a Ethereum conference. There are lots of projects that developing at the moment, developing infrastructure for DAOs, for the decentralized autonomous organizations for companies. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of interest in the structure because it's beneficial for both sides because also freelancers who participate, they can choose their own projects, so no one really pushes them and pulls them around, so they don't have a formal boss but they have a wide range of projects to choose. So it's not that they have to take whatever comes to the is dropped on their table, but they can
Yeah.
actually choose what they like. And if the DAOs will be in the future, they will be developed well enough, then there will also be a budget for like let's say sick leave, for all the other like benefits. So it's going to be some hybrid way of working where you have, in a way, you have some protection as a participant of a DAO, even
Mhm.
though you are freelancing. So it sort of like helps you with your career and development and kind of holds you in case you have problems, but at the same time gives you more freedom than traditional employment. So I really like the concept. So that's where I'm looking to develop my company in the
Interesting.
future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's working with people. Like I don't think I could ever just work just as a as a lonely like freelancer just without any without any collaborations. I don't think
Yeah.
that's sustainable for me. But
Well, it's a personality thing, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
totally, absolutely. I need to work with people. It's just that I need to be independent. I need to make sure that I make my own decisions. So that's the structure for me. but everyone is different. So there are also people who actually want everything but what I want. So they want to
Yeah.
stay away from making any decisions. They just give me the task. I don't want to take any responsibility, and also that they are on the other side of the spectrum. So people are different. Totally. Okay, so I have one question for you that I think I think many people will be interested in hearing the answer to, which is, how do you believe your PhD helped you to do what you do today? So, do you think, like, if you could turn back time, would you do a PhD in the first place? And you can be truthful.
Certainly, no, definitely. I mean, it's been a goal, and a goal I've pursued even against obstacles. As I said, the initial attempt didn't quite work out because the projects were done. The PhD helps you also getting into the right mindset to really analyze information and systematically research a topic and formalize really assessing it, which I think is, independently on what specialty you're dealing with, is a very good thing. I mean, if you look at these past years, especially in terms of science is becoming more and more important, even for our daily lives, from COVID to climate change to everything, all the disinformation going around, and being able to judge how reliable is this information, which I think is a major part of being a PhD, assessing your sources, assessing the quality of your sources, and sorting them in a way that you can make up your mind. I think it's an extremely powerful skill, especially in this information deluge that we're in right now. I mean, what did we think? I mean, I'm old enough that I've witnessed the beginnings of the World Wide Web, and we thought how great it would be to have all this information available at our fingertips. But of course, by now the internet is also filled with so much nonsense that really being able to assess this I can trust to that degree, this I can trust to that degree, and this is just some type of verbal diarrhea on the internet. I think that's an extremely powerful skill that is extremely valuable.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I fully agree. There's so much scam. Like that's so much scam. It's just unbelievable. Like I mean, I was I spent a few months interested in NFTs and investing a little bit, and I see like 99.9% of the information out there is scam. Like you have to be really critical today to, yeah, to navigate not only in the financial markets but in general. Like there's just
I
and
mean,
also
I did my PhD in molecular diagnostics. I've worked in the diagnostics industry, and even in academia for my gene expression studies, etc. I've done more PCR reactions than some people have heard the word. But over the last couple of years, if I had €1 for every time someone tried to lecture me on PCR tests, I would probably be rich by now. And the same holds with RNA and mRNA. I've worked with the stuff, but everybody wants to tell me they know everything about it.
right. Yeah,
Uh,
it's yeah, but that's a good point. It's you have to learn how to think independently and be critical. Critical, I would say, but critical toward pieces of information, not toward people, because that's also people get wrong sometimes. Like they become bitter, but you have to be critical but not bitter. So it's a thin red line. Okay, great. So, Oliver, I think we have to slowly wrap up, but
sure.
maybe you still have some pieces of wisdom. That's some pearls of wisdom you might share with our viewers so that they learn something extra from the master of education. Maybe there is something that comes to your mind. Something, for instance, a mistake you were doing in the past that you recognize, something that you learned from
Well,
your own story.
on a personality level, all I can say is don't get discouraged. And if one thing doesn't work out, then simply look for another route towards your goal. Don't immediately declare the whole effort in vain and throw everything away. I've seen that too, and it usually doesn't take a good turn. And but when it comes to PhDs and what I deal with professionally when it comes to presentations, then perhaps one thing to give people home with when it comes to presentations, no, even in a scientific presentation, it's not all about the data. There are people out there who want to take something home. And at the end of the day, a presentation you give is not about you, it's not about your data, it's about the audience and giving them something of value. And that's the first thing you need to take to heart.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And actually, the company is called Ontology of Value for a reason. So we're all about giving value and recognizing the value and building value. So thank you so much, Oliver, for joining us today. Thank you so much for your tips and sharing your story with us. And if you guys would like to get more of this type of content, please subscribe to this channel. And you can find a lot of information, including a lot of free content in the links below. And hopefully see you next time. Bye-bye.